Bookcase and Coffee presents Buzzing About Romance, a quick shot of romance.
Hey everyone, it's Becky from Buzzing About Romance.
Hi everybody, Leah here.
On this episode of A Quick Shot of Romance, we are reviewing Eye Candy by Jiffy Kate. This is the latest release, which is book 3 of the Fighting for Love series in the Smartypants romance world of Green Valley, Tennessee. Leah, why don't you give us the synopsis from Goodreads?
Okay. Vali Erickson is the classic middle child, misunderstood, underestimated, and overlooked. He's really fine with it. Or he's fine with it, really. The overlooked part is actually serving him well during this phase of life. He's in Green Valley in an effort to fly under the radar and regroup after a life-altering blow to his heart and ego. The last thing he's looking for is a woman to warm his bed until one throws him to the mat and rocks his world. Margaret O'Neal is an only child who has led a sheltered life. She's used to being a wallflower. Her ability to blend into the background is what allows her to maintain her anonymity as a gossip columnist for the Green Valley Ledger. Since the Ericksons moved to town, she's never felt more inspired, especially with the newest edition. Vali Erickson is the definition of eye candy, devastatingly handsome, with muscles for days, giving her plenty to report about. The more Maggie observes, the more she finds herself wanting things she's only read about in romance novels. Admiring Vali from afar is good enough for her until their paths cross and she finds herself trying to stay afloat in uncharted territory. No labels, no promises, and way out of her comfort zone. Will this arrangement be what finally breaks her out of her shell, or will her heart be a casualty of the Viking invasion? Eye Candy is a full-length contemporary romance and can be read as a standalone, book number 3 in the Fighting for Love series, Green Valley Chronicles, Penny Reed book universe.
Okay, so before we go any farther, let's talk about it, that it's part of the Penny Reed book universe.
Mm-hmm.
So I've read the Knitting in the City series that Penny Reed wrote, but where does Green Valley come in?
Green Valley comes in from the Winston Brothers series. That is where they live. They live in Green Valley, Tennessee.
Okay. So, and Penny Reed, I like her, but she's very wordy and has it's a cadence you have to get used to reading.
She has her very own style. I have not actually read another author that writes quite like her, which I kind of like, to be honest. It's a variation from everybody else. Like, you have to be in the moment and need to read that type of book. I can't just randomly say I'm going to read Penny Reed today. Like, I need to be in the mood for that. But I love her writing.
Yeah. And so Eye Candy is written by Jiffy Kate, and they borrow the world of Green Valley from Penny Reed.
Yes. And you occasionally see characters pop in, like Jennifer, the banana queen, the banana cake queen, the Donner Bakery. Like, they have a whole Donner Bakery series. But yeah, they have different characters pop in every once in a while. They're not a huge component of the story, but they do show up every once in a while.
Okay. So the release date for Eye Candy was February 18th of 2021. It is, the tropes in this are sports romance, rom-com, small town, slow burn, virgin heroine. And then I would also say friends with benefits a little bit on this, because they decide to go into it with no promises, no labels.
Right.
And the series is The Fighting for Love. This is book 3. Steam level is around a 3 because it's a slow burn. And the angst level is a 2. There is relationship angst in this story.
Yeah, there is no outside angst, really. There's some situational things that happen that create it, but no other people or anything like that.
And so I will say, I read this as a standalone, but you have read the other 2 books in this series, correct?
I have, yes. And they're just as good, just as funny. They have their own set of issues and problems, but if you don't read them, you won't be lost.
Okay. Now this was my first time reading Jiffy Kate. So I was kind of excited. I really loved it. I loved this story
Mhm.
and I'm hooked.
They're funny. Like they and it but they're not outlandishly funny or ridiculously funny. Like they're subtle in the way that their humor comes out. I mean, there are moments where it's ridiculous, like
It is
things that are
ridiculous.
said or things that happen, but they're more subtle in their humor, but
Well, it's
not in a bad
real.
way.
No, it's real life
Uh-huh.
humor. Like these are situations that could happen to us in our everyday life.
Hmm.
Um, I will say, like, just real quick though. So we all know I am terrible with names, the
Uh-huh.
worst. I actually put Vali's name in Google um, so that I could make sure that in my brain I was saying it correctly and it wasn't like veil, but spelled weird or valet or something ridiculous. Like I came to the meeting prepared.
Prepared. You should do that every time.
Okay, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Um,
Watch you do it one time and it's not right.
I'm gonna, well, I did that actually. Another story when we had Austin from Naughty Books documentary. I
Uh-huh.
put her last name in
But
Google
it
to
was
see,
not.
so completely wrong. It made it some crazy Italian. Anyway, let's get to Maggie. Um,
Hmm.
so tell us a little bit about Miss Maggie.
Was homeschooled. She was fairly sheltered, but she was a late in life child for her parents. She's an only child. She works for her parents. She lives with her parents still. She's 24, I
24,
think,
I think.
but
Yep.
she
Mm-hmm.
still lives at home. The one thing I liked about her parents, so like they did shelter her, but at the same time they didn't. Like they wanted her to go out and experience things. They wanted her to live a life. Like she almost kind of held herself back a little bit because she had this fear, I think, of like stepping outside of her box in some ways.
Well, and so the story is written in dual point of view, and so when Maggie would start talking to herself or explaining things going on with her parents, at first you really expect these very controlling parents that are going to be like monitoring her like she's a teenager gone wild or something.
Right.
And that's not at all how they are. They respect her as an adult. They just ask her to be equally considerate of
Right.
them. Like if you're gonna be late, tell us you're going to be late, or let us know where you are. If you aren't coming home, like you're only going to be gone for an hour and you don't come home until 2:30 in the morning.
Right.
They just wanted her to be respectful and thoughtful in how she did things.
Which I thought was nice because you do read sometimes where the character is sheltered and they are sheltered, like they don't experience anything, they don't get to go out and do things, and she was almost afraid to step out of that in some ways because they did treat her so well, and she didn't want to make them have any disappointment whatsoever in her. But it was nice at the same time because she had these little things that were her little rebellions in a way, but they weren't because her parents wanted her to do those things at the same time.
Yeah. I so but even though she was naive, she isn't stupid.
No,
Like
no.
she's not making stupid or immature choices. She's not like she goes into this situation with Vali very cautiously and
Right.
smartly. Like, and I love, so she has a pen pal, Everly,
Uh-huh.
and I love how Everly is this kind of voice of reason in the background that just keeps saying, why aren't you at the bar where they are?
Yeah.
Why are you sitting on the sidelines? Like kind of giving her the push to live her life.
Yeah, and it's funny because they had never met in person. Like they have been pen pals for years and years and years, and they've talked on the phone a little bit, but they've never physically met, but they know more about each other than anybody else in their entire lives. But they almost like evened each other out, because Everly, like, she was a little bit out there and not in a bad way, and like Maggie brought her back in when she needed to, but she pulled Maggie out of like her comfort zone at the same time, and from the distance, like, they were able to talk these ideas through.
And I wouldn't say so. Maggie, while she loves her small town, she's not unhappy living there or being sheltered. There's just a restlessness in her, almost a wanderlust.
Yeah.
And Vali is her first chance to kind of taste what is outside of her little town. So let's talk about her gossip column. It was called Trixie and Tess.
Yes. And it was toted as two people who wrote it. But it was just her. Only the editor at the newspaper is aware that she writes it. Nobody else does, besides Everly, because Everly knows everything. So she keeps this very close to the vest. She doesn't want people to know, but she doesn't. They added some like columns that she had written, and she doesn't write anything bad. It's just like her observations about things happening around town.
And one of her favorite things to observe is the Viking invasion that she keyed the Erickson brothers moving to Green Valley. And more so than anything, she really is attracted to Vali. So let's talk about Vali a little bit. He is in Green Valley to escape from an ex that was married.
But he did not know she was married.
No, they had dated for a year, and then he went to propose to her.
He did propose to her. He proposed and found out she was married. And he fell apart, basically, because he was set to take this big step with her, and she had lied to him. And what's crazy is, like, she had been around his family and like had a relationship. Like, she went to family functions, and I don't know how that was a secret for so long.
Well, and because of that, because of him being hurt so deeply, he has a couple things. He does not want to have any labels or expectations as he gets involved with Maggie. He doesn't feel that his time in Green Valley will be long-lived. He really wants, he knows that he's going to go back home to Dallas, and knows that her life is in Green Valley. And so and also because of being hurt by this ex, he doesn't want any secrets so he tries to be very open and very transparent with Maggie. And all the while, Maggie's kind of holding on to a secret about her
gossip
job, her gossip column. And it's funny because in the beginning of the story, we learn that one of the things that Vali adores most about Green Valley is the ledger and that column.
He looks forward to that column every time it comes out.
Yeah. So, so Vali's brothers, he has 4 brothers total.
Yeah.
2 of them are in Green Valley. There is Gunnar, who is the youngest of the Erickson brothers. And then there is Leaf, quote, Cage, quote, Erickson.
Yeah. Well, he's Leaf Erickson, but he doesn't go by Leaf.
He goes by Cage.
Yeah. And he's the oldest.
He's the oldest of the brothers. Yes. Yeah. And maybe he's the second oldest. Is he the second oldest? Is the other brother?
No, I think Cage is the oldest.
Feel free to leave us a comment and let us know which one is the oldest.
It's hard to, there's 5 of them. It's hard to keep track.
Right. But he is one of the oldest. He starts the series as Stud Muffin.
Yes.
And his significant other is Tempest.
Mm-hmm.
And he has opened a MMA fighting styled gym in Green Valley because that's what the family does. So that's the sports aspect of this romance, is that this is a family of MMA fighters. Their father was a big MMA fighter, and now the kids
Owns, yes, like they
training
own
gyms.
a big training gym in Dallas, and he got hurt, and that is what brought him to Green Valley originally, and then he decided to stay and open his own training gym. And then Gunnar came, and then Valley came.
So, and Gunner's significant other in this book is Frankie, who
Mhm.
is a nurse and an advocate for a women's shelter. And that would be the second book, and I'm not sure what the name of the second book is. So the brothers are kind of hilarious altogether.
Uh-huh.
That and their obsession with pastries, with muffins.
Well, I mean, Tempest is the muffin maker at the Donner Bakery. But I love the muffin names. She has like they're all like song names.
They're so great. The muffins are so fantastic. And in the story, one of the big thing that's happening is that the brothers have installed a new ring that's a professional grade fighting ring into their gym. And Gunner is prepping for a big title fight that's going to take place in New Orleans in a couple weeks. And so all of this is going on. And Maggie, for the sake of the newspaper and her own curiosity and obsession with some really cute Vikings, decides to take a female defense class that Tempest is teaching at the gym.
Yes.
And one of their technical meet cute when they meet each other is they have been partnered together in a sparring exercise, and he goes to grab her and she totally flips him and puts him down to the mat. It is so great.
It was, well, because she's not like a small person, but like compared to him, she's very tiny because he's like this giant like Viking, and she takes him down.
She does. She totally takes him down. It was so funny. So I do like, there were a couple of things in this story. There were a couple things I really, really loved, like the scene with the jam, the preserves that that Maggie made and brought to Mr. Valley. Steamy. Like
very
even
steamy.
the scenes without like actual intercourse were like, whoa, that's some stuff right there.
They write good steam.
Yeah, I will not look at a container of jam, homemade jam, the same for a while.
Or ever.
I might need to go to the farmer's market or something. I don't know. So there were some really great moments like that, but one of the things that kind of niched at me a little bit is how Vale does figure out, because of some information that Maggie puts in her Trixie and Tess article, he figures out that
she is Trixie and Tess.
And so she's kept this secret and she's lied to him. And she tells him, well, I just sit in the shadows and people don't really notice. And I wanted to tell you, I just didn't know how to tell you. And he's like, oh, it's okay, I still love you. Or, they didn't say I love you at that point, but.
No. But I wonder, though, if he was so forgiving about it because he had this, like, love of them ahead of time. Like, he really wanted to know who they were. And so, because he talked about all the time how he looked forward to the ledger and he wanted to read it and he wanted to meet them. He needed to know who it was. And so I wonder if maybe part of his easy forgiveness with that is because he was so enamored with Trixie and Tess himself.
Yeah. I also thought the scene so Maggie's family owns Feed and Fodder, O'Neal's Feed and Fodder in Green Valley. And the first time that Valley is noticed by her parents, he has come into the store and he keeps doing things. And her dad catches him playing with the crops for the horses. I hard. That was so funny.
Because
And-
he's just doing it and not paying attention. Then all of a sudden he notices her dad is there and he's like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, and then later on, when Vali comes clean to her parents that she's dating, when Maggie comes clean to her parents that she's dating Vali, he was like, would this be the gentleman that I caught playing with horse crops in my store? Like, oh, that's awkward.
Not a good first impression there, but it gets better for him, so it's okay.
It does. And I don't want to spoil any more of this story, but I was gutted. It was like, what? Yeah.
You understood the reasoning for what happened, but the way it went down was rough. It was rough to read. It would be terrible to experience that, but you knew why he was doing it, but the way that it happened was not okay.
My heart was breaking. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I was a little broken during those pages. And then I'm like, at this point, it's like 12:30 in the morning. And so then I'm sitting there going, hurry, gotta get through these pages. I need to know how. I couldn't just go to sleep.
No, you can't. That's when that I'll just read one more chapter comes in, and it's like 5 chapters later, and
Right.
And
yeah, because
you're
their
like,
resolution didn't just happen like
No.
the next day.
And I liked that because of the way everything happened. Like, I feel like a quick resolution would not have been organic. It would not have been believable. Like, there was a long separation there, and they slowly made it steps to getting back together, like during that separation. But it was not just a couple of days and it was all hunky-dory again. Like, they had to work to get back to where they were, and I appreciated that, because I feel like sometimes that works and it's not a problem where that resolution comes quickly. But I feel like there are some moments where it needs to be drawn out a little bit more, and it's not, and you're like, that was too easy.
I would agree. And I won't even get into the epilogue and my feelings on that. That's for another day. And so before we get into, okay, so let's do this, and then I'll say my little piece at the end. Leah, did you like this book?
I did like this book, and I am really, really hoping that we get books for Ozzy. I think it's Ozzy and Vigo. Ozzy
Vigo.
And Vigo. Yeah, I'm hoping that we get those, because there are things that happen at the end that it seems like the Viking invasion is growing.
It's going to keep coming.
It's coming, and I'm excited for more.
I loved this book. It was my first read by these authors, or by this author.
Well, technically authors.
Yeah. And I'll be back. I'm all in. So many books. And oh wait, you know what? This isn't my first read, because I read their assistant that's part of their baseball series that's in New Orleans. I just remembered that. I lied to you, fans. I'm sorry. Who would typically like this book?
I think anybody who likes a rom-com would like this. If you like reading about the Green Valley world, the Smartypants world, like, you would definitely like this book. It's a nice little visit back.
I would say rom-com for sure. The people reading this need to be okay with a slow burn.
Yeah.
There is steam, there is flirting, there is buildup, but it
takes
is
a little bit to get to that, though.
Yeah. But if you're looking for a hero that brings the big swoons, this is it. Like,
yeah,
he is swoony for sure.
He's very swoony. Yeah.
Would you recommend this book?
I definitely would recommend this book.
I actually recommended it.
Would you?
I would. I recommended it in a Facebook group today. Somebody was looking for a slow burn virgin heroine, and I'm like, oh, I just finished this.
I have the perfect book for that.
So what I was going to say is I'm super excited. Jiffy Kate are going to be our guests for our Drunk Book Club in March. So this episode is dropping on March the 9th. So on March 13th, we have Drunk Book Club. So, and I'm super excited that they're coming, and I am totally going to ask them about this epilogue because it's kind of stuck a little bit in my knickers.
You have questions.
I have questions. So many questions. But yeah, so this has been your quick shot of romance. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Find us on Instagram at buzzingaboutromance or on Twitter at buzzingromance. If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.